say?
That's why the Bible is redundant. The Lord says things over and over because we're stiff-necked, hard-headed people.
Calm down and listen to one another. And more importantly, listen to this Bible. Right? Okay, watch this.
But in this last day, the Most High is raising up the true prophets of God.
All praise.
Question I'm asking. Like the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans that has God so nigh unto them.
The laws of God is the light that we gotta let shine before men.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. We're Israel united in Christ. We're here to teach you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans who you are according to the Bible.
That's right.
Give me Romans chapter 13. Because it's high time for you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans to wake up. You've been asleep for far too long.
That's right.
Read.
Romans chapter 13 verse 11.
Read.
And that, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep.
Right now, it is the perfect time for you to wake up out of sleep. You've been asleep for far too long. You've been asleep for centuries. Now is the perfect time for you to wake up. Don't you see the things that's coming to pass? Prophecies are waking up before your eyes. Hey, shalom, sisters, give me one more.
But now is our salvation nearer than when we believe.
Now your salvation is nearer than when you believe. It's very close at hand. Hey, shalom, sis. You have any questions? I do have a question for you. What is your nationality?
I'm Baptist.
Baptist. All right, so that's a religion, my sister. But what is your nationality?
I'm
so
black.
You're black. So all right, a lot of our people we say the same thing. A lot of our people we say we're black, but African American. Not knowing that is something that the Most High God did not give to us. When you look at on this chart right here, where do you see yourself as?
American black.
American black. Now this is what your oppressors called you. That is a curse that God, our God, stated that was going to happen to us. But what God calls you is Judah.
That's right.
That's who the American blacks are. But because we went into captivity, those bywords is placed upon us. Give me Deuteronomy 28. Read.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb.
God says because we didn't want to follow his law, statute, commandments, we become an astonishment. The other nations, even our own communities, we're astonished at the way that we're living.
Right.
It says that we become a byword. A byword is something that's called you out your God-given name. Because God gave you the tribe of Judah.
Right.
That's what your heritage is. But because we disobeyed our God, now we're called bywords, such as American blacks. Now we're called black. Now we're called Negro. We call all these other things African American, not knowing African American.
God was called many names.
I'm sorry?
God was called many names.
Yes, you're absolutely right. God has been called many names. But now, we only know the words of English. I'm speaking to you as English. So we call God, the Most High God, God the Father, so on and so forth. But God says with our people, we are from the 12 tribes of Israel.
That's right.
The American blacks are called Judah. That's who God calls us,
Right.
Judites. But because of our minds have been destroyed because of slavery, now we become an astonishment. Now we call them bywords. What else did it say?
And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword.
A byword. A byword is something that's called out of your God-given name. Hey, my sister, where do you see yourself on this sign?
What I'm doing is Benjamin.
It is, you're absolutely right. That is something that God gave you. That is a beautiful name that God has given you. It means the son of the right. But because of the curse that was placed upon us, now we become bywords, proverbs. A proverb is a very wise saying. You want to hide something from a Negro? Put it in the book. Why? Because we don't read as a people. They say all black people like watermelon. That's a proverb. That's something that God said that will happen to us in these last days. And these are the last days. What happened to us as a people? We forgot our heritage. Give me that, Jeremiah. We forgot who we are as a people. Because God said that this would happen to us in slavery. Read.
Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 4. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from the heritage that I gave.
Because God has given us righteous laws, statutes, and commandments. He's given us laws to live by, to govern ourselves as a people. These are righteous commandments. But what happened?
And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave.
But we have discontinued from the heritage that our God has given us. Read.
And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies.
And now look what's happening to us. We are now serving our enemies in hunger, in thirst, and in nakedness. That is a curse. That's not a thing that we should be glorifying on. That's a curse that God placed upon us because we disobeyed him. Give me Deuteronomy 28 verse 15.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 15. But it shall come to pass.
This was going to happen in the future. Tell me if this happened in the future. Read.
If thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
Did we listen to God's law, statute, commandments as a people? No, we did not. Read.
To observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day.
Because you have to remember that Moses was speaking to the children of Israel. This was when we just left. This is when we just left the Egyptian captivity. And now he gave us law, statutes, and commandments to live by. Are you paying attention, my sister? You paying attention? All right. All praise. Read.
That all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
All these curses is going to come upon us and overtake us. Are we living the blessings right now as a people? We live in a curse, right? Read.
Verse 16. Cursed shalt thou be in the city.
It says, cursed shall we be in the city. You look at the city of Baltimore. Our people are living in the slums and in the ghettos. No matter where we go as a people, you always see our people in the slums and in the ghettos. Majority of us. We're going to have a little sprinkle here and there, living in the high parts of society. But for the most part, God is talking about the whole children of Israel. Majority of us are living in the ghetto. This is not a beautiful thing to glorify. Read.
And cursed shalt thou be in the field.
And cursed shall we be in the field. If you look at these charts right here, you will see that we was cursed in the field. We was in the sugar plantations. We was in the cotton plantations. We was in all these fields that we were slaving in. Even till this day in modern times, we are cursed in the field. We're in the job field, we're cursed. We're the first fired and we're the last ones hired. Even when they do hire us, we get paid the lowest wages. Do we not? Read.
Verse 18?
Yes, sir.
Verse 18. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body.
It says, cursed shall be the kids that come out of you. Our kids is cursed. Our kids is still passed on these curses from generation to generation. Am I right?
Right.
Read on.
And the fruit of thy land.
And the fruit of thy land. No matter what we do on our land, it's still cursed. We can try our best to build up these neighborhoods, but it's still cursed. Why? Because these curses are not going to escape from us. Read.
And the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out.
So no matter what, when we're born in curses. When we die, we're going to die in these curses. Why? Because we keep disobeying our God. Go back to Jeremiah chapter 17.
Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 4.
Read.
And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage
Let me ask you a question. What is our heritage? Get that for me. What is our heritage? There's nothing wrong with that because a lot of our people we don't know. But that's why we're out here. To inform and educate our people. To come back to our heritage. Read.
Sirach chapter 17 and verse 11.
Read.
Besides this, he gave them knowledge and the law of life for inheritance.
That law of life that is our heritage is these laws, statutes, and commandments.
That's right.
This is the only way we can build ourselves back up to our righteous state by following God's law, statutes, and commandments.
Bring it out.
Other than that, we're going to remain in this desolate state. We're going to remain on the bottom of our nation.
Bring it out.
The other nations are not looking out for us. The only way we can look out for our own is by following these laws, statutes, and commandments. Read.
Back to Jeremiah.
Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 4.
Read.
And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee.
Read.
And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies.
And what?
And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies.
Are we serving our friends or are we serving our enemies right now?
Good question.
All right, go to Deuteronomy 28. Go to verse 48.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 48. Therefore,
Verse 47.
verse 47. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness.
Because we want to follow God's law, statute, commandments with joyfulness. Right now, this is the Sabbath day of the Lord. God says we're supposed to be honoring the Sabbath day. He says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy.
Right.
We do not keep this day holy as a people. Because we refuse to keep his law, statute, commandments with joyfulness. Read.
And with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things.
Because you have to remember, God made this world for the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans.
That's right.
For the children of Israel.
Right.
That's the only reason why the other nations are in this world, for us.
Right.
But we want to
Bring it up.
serve God with joyfulness. And this is the consequence of what's happening. Read.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
So you're going to serve your friends.
Thine enemies.
God said you're going to serve your enemies now. Read.
Which the Lord shall send against.
Because God has sent the enemies against us because we didn't want to serve him. We didn't want to serve the only one true living God.
Right.
We wanted to be like the rest of the nations.
Right.
Read.
And hunger.
And what?
And hunger.
Do we own any type of restaurants as a people? As a nation of people, do we own any food? Nothing. So we got to go to our enemies, right? Read.
And in thirst.
Any type of water. Do our people own the Baltimore Water Company? No, we do not. We got to go to our enemies to get that stuff. Read.
And in nakedness.
And in nakedness. Do we own any type of fabric distributors? No, we do not, right? Read.
And in want of all things.
If you want a birth certificate, a death certificate, a license, if you want something to wipe your behind, you have to go to your enemies. If you want shelter, you got to go to your enemies. Why? Because we don't own anything as a people. We are a cursed people. Read.
And he
And you got to remember the context. That he is talking about as your enemies. Read.
shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
Who put a yoke of iron upon our necks?
White man.
The so-called white man. Not only the so-called white man, but you have to remember that the other nations, as you can see, they had us in auction blocks.
Our joke is easy. The enemy's joke.
Yes, our enemies. They sold us into slavery. They had yokes of iron. It's not just the so-called white man. You have all the other nations they had us. You have the so-called Chinese had us in slavery.
Right.
You have the so-called Japanese had us in slavery.
Right.
You had the Arab man. All these nations that we buy and sell from had us in slavery.
That's right.
Read.
Bring it up.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed.
And now we are destroyed as a people.
Bring it out.
When we were destroyed as a people, what happened? They gave us the Emancipation Proclamation. They said, now you can go free. Abraham Lincoln signed that document, but we was destroyed as a people. Whatever our enemies said we were, they said we black. Okay, yes, boss, we black. You say you're African American. Oh, yes, boss, we African American. But that's not what God called us.
Right.
God called us Benjamin,
Right.
Levi,
Right.
Judah,
Right.
Naphtali, Ephraim,
Right.
Manasseh. All these names, these are righteous names. Gad. A lot of you so-called blacks just celebrated the murder and the massacre of your own people.
Bring it
on
up.
Thanksgiving. That is something God told us not to do.
That's right.
Go back to Jeremiah.
Bring it out.
Read.
I never knew that.
Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 4.
Read.
And thou, even thyself, shall discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee. And I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not.
Because we did not know this land. The so-called blacks, we didn't know this land. We got pulled from the land of Africa to this side of the world. Now our brothers and sisters of Northern Kingdom, Ephraim, Manasseh, Simeon, Zebulun, Gad, Reuben, Asher, Issachar, Naphtali, they were already on this side of the world. But they got conquered. Why? Because they disobeyed God in the process of time. So we came over on this side of the world because we disobeyed God in the process of time. So it was a punishment. Read.
For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger.
Because we ticked God off. Because he said, look, follow my law, statute, commandments, and I'm going to bless you. If you don't, I'm going to make you serve your enemies with rigor. And now look at us. We're serving our enemies. Read.
Which shall burn forever.
Hey, shalom, my brother. What was that?
Slavery was in the Bible.
You didn't know slavery was in the Bible. We're going to show you that we're not lying. We're going to show you. Deuteronomy 28.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
We're going to see what the Lord said about Egypt. Because our history is written in this Bible. You're not going to learn this history that we're bringing out on the Lord's Sabbath in your Sunday churches. Why? Because the pastors and the preachers, what happened to them? They went to their enemies to learn about their God, not about our God.
Read. Exodus chapter 20 verse 2.
Read.
I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.
Egypt is synonymous with bondage, the house of bondage. So let's go back. Read.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 68.
Read.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
So God said, I'm going to bring you into Egypt. You have to understand the history. We walked out of Egypt.
Bring it out.
Moses parted the Red Sea, and we walked right out of Egypt, right through the Red Sea, in the wilderness, into the land of Canaan. But God said, what?
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
He said, now I'm going to bring you in the house of bondage with ships. When did that happen to us, my brother? When did that happen to us as a people? When did we go on ships?
The Atlantic slave trade?
Yes, the Atlantic slave trade. Do you know when it started?
It seems, no, I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna help you out. How about you, my sister? You know when we came on here on slave ships? All right.
Was it 1800s?
No, it was before then. You have to understand, it was before then. We weren't, the so-called blacks, we weren't the first ones to go on slavery.
Right. Thank you.
The so-called Hispanics, Native Americans. Hey, my brother, you got a little bit of time. I want to talk. All right, my brother, you got the flyer? Make sure you check us out online. You have to understand that the so-called Hispanics and Native Americans, they came on slavery before we came on this side of the world.
Right.
When Christopher Columbus and the rest of the conquistadors came here in 1492, they sold our people, the so-called Hispanics and Native Americans, from this side of the world to the other side. Right. So they were the first ones to go into slavery.
Right.
Thereafter 1619, that's when we came on this side of the world. Read.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
He said we're never going to see our homeland Israel again. Because you have to understand, my sister, Israel, that's our motherland. Get that for me. Get me that in Galatians. Because you have to understand, a lot of our people, we say, well, Africa is the motherland. Well, what part of Africa is it? Because Africa has over 54 countries in there. It's a mass continent.
Bring it out.
Well, what part of Africa did we come from?
Right.
We're going to explain out the Bible. Read.
Galatians chapter 4 verse 26.
Read.
But Jerusalem which is above is free.
He says Jerusalem is where we obtain freedom. That's where our freedom lies, is in Jerusalem. Where is it at?
Which is the mother of us all.
That's our motherland. Jerusalem, Israel. Israel's in Africa.
Right.
Don't let these charts that the so-called white man fool you.
Right.
They created these charts out of deception.
Right.
When you look at the ancient charts, you will see that Israel is connected to Africa.
Right.
That's where our motherland is. Go back to where you was at.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 68.
Read.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
So the same way God said it was going to happen, it did happen to us. He said we was going to go into slavery with ships. It did happen to us. And we will never see our homeland again. Read.
And there you shall be sold into your enemies.
He says, and there you should be sold into your enemies. Read.
For bondmen,
For what?
bondmen,
For slave men
and bondwomen,
and slave women.
and no man shall buy you.
And no man shall be able to redeem us out of this bondage.
Right.
We have great leaders that came across
Right.
throughout time. We have Marcus Garvey. We have Malcolm X.
Right.
We had Nat Turner.
Right.
We have Martin Luther King.
Right.
But none of these people was able to get us out of this condition. We are still in slavery even till this day.
We used to scream black power while heroin was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission. Minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold. From Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.